Congressman McCormick, right? You said. And you were talking about you asked about police being on the street?
Yeah, so he's
military veteran, fellow Afghani veteran, and a police officer, knows the beat very, very well, who served here decades. And my history is a 20 plus year veteran myself, and also my father was a deputy sheriff in Vegas when I was born. So I love law enforcement, love the military, and I understand its appropriate uses, and I do understand the controversy. I do, and I appreciate the concern over overreach and whether it's effective or not. I understand the debate, and I think I can see both sides of the issue, but I think ultimately what we're all concerned with is the security and safety of our citizens. We all can agree that's what you put your life on the line, and you put your life on the line for decades.
Well, isn't it arguable, and this is the stance I personally take, I'm not really speaking for anybody but myself, but that the safety and security of our people are undermined by misusing our military, right? This is my concern, because I'm a strong advocate for the military. I'm protesting a lot of things. I'm protesting ICE out here, but I've seen people scream at the National Guard, and I'm like, hey, let's not scream at our troops. Sure. They didn't ask to be put here. They were put here by someone else. So, I get both sides here, but I don't get the argument of how we could justify putting the National Guard on the street. They're not doing anything. Let's see a National Guard soldier sees a crime. You can't stop it. You can't conduct law enforcement activities.
Statistically, it's a deterrence, right? We've had a massive decrease in crime, in violence, in homicides. You can't argue with that. Ultimately, you can't. Because it's objective.
But it wasn't the National Guard.
So regardless of what the reasoning is, it is a show of force, and it's a response to a lack of force previously. Now I'm not saying that this should be permanent. Certainly not.
30-year low in D.C. That's the argument. So people like him who did it for 20 years.
I'll say this: it is a complicated issue.
It is.
And the big part of why we're experiencing the crime that we have in Washington, D.C. is, we had a city council that tied police officers' hands. We had a adversarial relationship between the city council.
That's why we had the law passed by Andrew Clyde during the Biden administration, asked for by a Democrat, to Republicans, because the Democrats wouldn't act on crime. And that's because the city, just to finish my point real quick, and then boundaries. If you have a city that will not enforce its own laws, will not support the police officers once you make the arrest, will not prosecute criminals, and put this, whether it be a mental health issue or just a violence, because you know that statistically speaking, I'm a ER physician by trade after I was a pilot in the Marine Corps. Statistically, you let people get away with small things repeatedly, it results in big things. The average murderer in D.C. has been put in jail 7 times and released 7 times, and they get more and more violent.
One of the reasons, I'm going to let you go, Mike, a lot of the reasons that these things happen, you have people who have mental health issues out on the streets, is because it's not taken care of in this building. And many times it's Republicans who are killing funding for mental hospitals and services that will help people who are out on the streets, and that would reduce crime. Or adding more police officers to the force and adding mental health experts and therapists who can deal with people who have mental health issues and help to de-escalate situations. So it's not just Democrats that there's a problem in crime in cities.
But I'm only addressing the one portion that we could address at this moment. If you look at the national challenges of mental health, and like I said, what I would do is I'd have somebody brought to me that was obviously schizophrenic or having some sort of psychological challenge, manic, and doing something to break the law or threaten people. They'd be brought to the ER. I'd have to sedate them. I'd have to restrain them to get them calmed down. Then I'd have to put them in a special portion of the ER, and then they would get admitted to a psychiatric facility.
But if those people were already in facilities, if the funding wasn't cut, they wouldn't be out on the streets.
I'm about to address that. So actually, this is a bipartisan issue, and it's also a state issue too. So what happens, we put them in not a sanatorium, because those are no longer allowed, right? So we don't have permanent facilities for anybody. Not just because of funding from the federal level, but from the state level also. Because the way we saw them actually is a bad thing, because people were being abused, right? Correct. And so what happens now, we treat them, we get them well, then we discharge them, and they repeat. And so it's the most expensive possible way. Ironically, we're not saving money. Yeah. We're spending the most amount of money because they go to the ER regularly. Yeah. I see the irregulars for me.
If I may, I want to say 2 things really briefly. I would really love, Congressman, if I could just get a direct answer, because I've been asking other congresspeople this too, not just you. And I appreciate that you're taking this time to talk to us.
Yeah, we
impromptu.
do. Yeah.
So
This is an important issue.
I agree, because as a veteran, it tears my soul apart. See the military industry, the way they're being used as photo opportunities and puppets. But crime in D.C. is at a 30-year low. So how in the world can we even justify this misuse of our military? We're at a 30-year low. I don't understand
it's
how
all relative, isn't it?
I don't think it's relative at all.
It's relative to what we experience. So I'm telling you, as a congressman, and as who has had peers recently carjacked, who've had staff.
Those are anecdotal, Congressman. Statistically,
so when you know, this is 435 members, right? We also have staff, and it's a small percentage of people that I know, and I know of at least 20 people inside of my friend group that have either been assaulted, or threatened, or chased, or abused. Here, I don't have that in Atlanta. Atlanta's a bigger city than Washington, D.C.
I live in Atlanta. Atlanta has problems.
But I'm telling you my experience.
Yeah.
You can solve it anecdotal, but I don't have 20 people in Atlanta. Now in Buckhead, they did have a problem.
But
and guess what happened? In Buckhead, we actually addressed the problem.
Listen,
and I'm from Baton Rouge, and I'm from Louisiana, and their crime rate is worse than Washington, D.C., and yet they're sending members of the National Guard.
Here's exactly the problem. So if you go to Baton Rouge,
I grew up in Baton Rouge. I'm from Baton Rouge.
If I go to Baton Rouge right now and I'm not feeling safe, shame on that local principality for not stepping up also. This is exactly what this is about.
But then why is Louisiana sending National Guard here where they should be doing it to their own? Why isn't Donald Trump sending National Guard to Louisiana?
So here's the great question. So in regards to how the federal government works and what our purview is, typically it's Washington, D.C., and every other one is supposed to be locally run. Now, we did send troops into L.A., remember? During the rioting, we sent in Marines, as a matter of fact. Just recently.
Oh.
Remember during riots?
Well,
we sent in Marines.
I don't call them riots.
We sent in Marines. Not just National Guard, but Marines.
You know, that was
illegal.
like 2 blocks of the city.
Got it.
Yeah,
but my point being, and we actually have legislation that talks about how that's going to be funded in the future if local people don't step up. Let's say, and it could be Republican or Democrat, I don't care. But let's say the local person doesn't want to stand up against January 6th rioting or whatever. Or I see I'm trying to make this balance, right? Whether it be whoever it is not going the distance to protect their people, and the federal government has to step in because the local government's not doing, they should have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And because we're not protecting our citizens, and ultimately, your job, my job is to protect the American citizens.
Let me ask you a question. What's your state again? I'm sorry.
Georgia.
You're from Georgia. Okay. So what if you were the mayor of Georgia or the governor of Georgia, the mayor of Atlanta, the governor of Georgia, and all of a sudden the president sends folks down, usurping the authority of the people who were the elected officials there? Wouldn't you be upset by that? Wouldn't a better way be, hello, Mr. Mayor, hello, Mr. Governor, we have a crime problem in this country.
Yeah.
And we can, let me finish, we can help each other out. We're all in this together. If you need some resources, I'll be more than happy to send you. How can we help you out instead of, I'm sending the National Guard there because it's a shithole, or the city is run over and it looks like shit and it's crazy. And I'm not exaggerating, I'm not being hyperbolic, that's what's happening. Isn't there a better way to do this if you really care about crime? And wouldn't you be sending it to the red cities and red states who have crime? I know you're not supposed to send the members of the military out, but don't you think it would be weird that he's not sending it to other places on the other side of the aisle, depending on if it was a Democratic president? Wouldn't you say, well, why aren't you sending him to Chicago? Why are you sending him here to Atlanta? Wouldn't you feel a certain kind of way about that?
Yeah, so when you talk about best practices, we've seen comparisons and contrasts of mayors who come in and clean up cities, right? Yeah. It's when you increase law enforcement presence, when you include prosecution of people who've been arrested instead of turning them over.
I understand that, but you're not answering my question.
No, actually, it is.
Okay.
You talked about.
I don't think it's true.
You talk about doing something better. Now, the president right now is trying to set an example and saying, "Hey, look, I'm giving you the opportunity. I'm showing you the example of what's going to happen if you're not cleaning up your own city."
But why can't he show that example in Memphis?
Actually, Memphis is a great example of what should be clean. That's one of the worst cities around.
Right. Why isn't he showing that example in Baton Rouge?
I think it could be done, and I think it might be done, but I don't want it to be done. Here's what I want.
But listen to the places: Los Angeles, blue, right? Chicago, that he's saying he's going to send
actually,
it.
Memphis is blue.
Blue.
Every city.
Well, Tennessee is a red state, okay.
But Memphis is extremely blue.
Okay, but still, it's in a red state.
But you're using an example of a
okay, well, fine. Let's just say Memphis, Baltimore, blue.
Blue.
Yeah. So
name me a big city that's not blue.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let me say something. Don, let me say something. Listen.
They're saying that has a crime problem.
Well, every city has crime problem.
Not like those cities that you mentioned. Not that you
Congressman,
Jackson, Mississippi has crime. Every big city has a crime problem.
But that's exactly my problem. If you want to talk about addressing, when you had a new mayor in New York and they clean up crime, everybody's happier.
Yeah.
And that happened to be a Republican that did that.
I think you're making a very good point. Hang on one second. Every big city is blue. What does that say? A lot of people want to live in big blue cities.
Sure.
And if
they're happier when?
if you're in a big city and you have more people, you're going to have a bigger crime
And
rate.
they're happier when,
The thing
though.
is, hang on. The thing is, what's important, when I talked to my mom who just visited me for 7 weeks from Baton Rouge, she said when people, and they say, well, someone said that Chicago has more people than Baton Rouge. And my mom said, well, I can't believe they're pointing that out, which is a Republican, because that's worse. We have a smaller city and we have worse crime. So,
Per capita.
Because it's
per capita. Baton Rouge is red.
Can I say one thing really quick? Because we're on live, especially. You mentioned that when you bring more police officers in and prosecution, that it deters crime. That's been disproven. More police officers. That if you
It's simply not true.
We should ask our police expert.
Ask ChatGPT. I promise you that's not true.
Hang on. If we lower the poverty rate, we affect crime. That is very true. That's
true,
objectively true.
But the first part is not true.
Increase the living wage, if we decrease the unhoused rate because people can't afford the rent, if we make it possible to get health care, this decreases crime.
Hey, you support me and I'll make all those things happen. How's that?
Go ahead. Mike is
Listen.
our police expert.
As somebody who was born in Washington, D.C., spent 20 years of my life as a police officer here in Washington, D.C., this is the problem that I have with what's happening right now. Like, I will concede to you that there is a crime problem in Washington, D.C. The issue that I have here is, one, the National Guard, to me, in the way that it's being utilized, is completely performative and useless and a waste of taxpayer dollars. Like I said, we did have a crime emergency early in my career. The way that the way that they were deployed was into high crime areas, and they were used for high visibility. But I think we can both agree that this is not a sustainable practice. We cannot permanently have National Guard troops in our nation's capital or in any city for all of eternity. The other portion to that is the increase in federal officers. And I'm talking about everything with the exception of ICE. I'm talking about the FBI resources, the ATF, the DEA. As someone who worked as a task force officer with each of those three agencies during my career, those relationships are imperative to successful policing because local cops know the streets, local cops know the communities and the neighborhoods, feds bring in the resources and bring in the investigative capabilities that we either can't afford or just don't have experience in building cases. Putting FBI agents on a foot patrol down 14th Street is a waste of their time and, quite frankly, a waste of everyone's time. The way that they should be used is to bolster these task force to go after real criminals. The quality of life crap is, again, a waste of time. Harassing people sleeping on park benches while it's unsightly, I get it. Why not just invest that money into programs that house the homeless people? I get the fact that the encampments are unsightly and unsanitary. But again, the optics of coming in and throwing all of these tents, taking people's shit and putting in a garbage can, at the end of the day, when all of you guys are gone, when the National Guard is gone, when the federal resources have dried up and gone somewhere else, the Metropolitan Police Department is going to be left to police this community, which now has lost total faith and trust in them as their independent law enforcement agency and views them as capitulators to what they see as an occupying force. And I know more than anyone here in this conversation what it means to be involved in policing a community that doesn't trust you and doesn't want you there.
I would say that's probably why we're doing what we're doing right now. In counterpoint to that, I think, first of all, I appreciate the men in blue. I'm totally big fan. I think it's more dangerous than being in the military most days, and that's from a guy who served in combat zones, and
I agree with you.
Who's seen hate and discontent and death in quantities. So my hat's off to everybody who does that for a living. But the reason we're in this predicament is because we have not stepped on the local level. We have not stepped up to to the level that makes people feel safe. And this is Democrats and Republicans reaching out to us saying, please help. We don't feel safe. We don't like what's happening here. This is why we've changed laws for the city that will not take care of itself.
You have Democrats reaching out who?
That's literally why Andrew Clyde passed the law last during the Biden administration that originally Biden said he wasn't going to sign, and the Senate said they weren't going to pass because.
I thought you meant now reaching out to the Trump administration saying who?
Oh, I'm saying this has been the trend in big cities all the time. They're like, remember in Buckhead, where I'm from, Buckhead in part of Atlanta was starting to get overrun by crime elements, and it's a very wealthy part of the. They're like, let us have our own police department. I lived in Atlanta. Let me have my own police department.
I lived in Virginia Highlands.
Yeah, because we don't feel safe, and they wanted to break off so they could actually control their own destiny. And when a local government doesn't do what they have to do to control their destiny, people will start freaking out. They'll either move away and just leave it to go run down, which happens all the time. We've seen it in all kinds. That's where you get your slums from. People give up. Yeah. They give up, and if we're not people, you'll have more and more slums. You have more and more safety concerns. You have more and more murders. You have more and more problems. And I'm not saying this is a perfect solution. What I'm saying is it's a shot across the bow. Step up locally and do your jobs, and this won't happen on lots of different levels.
That's bullying at the federal level. But watch this. Let me show you something. You said ask ChatGPT, so I did it. I said, ChatGPT, does increased police presence decrease crime? ChatGPT says the relationship between increased police presence and crime reduction is complex. In some cases, increased police presence can reduce certain types of crime. It depends on how it's implemented, but increased police presence doesn't always reduce crime. Now, I asked ChatGPT, does decrease in poverty decrease crime? ChatGPT emphatically said yes, decrease in poverty. So what I'm saying is, rather than federal bullying like you just described, by putting our military in a really ridiculous situation to be photo opportunities, stop all that, skip that step, and decrease poverty, which we just agreed is the much better approach.
By the way, I got some great ideas on how to do that. But once again, I think the government's the problem, not the answer. And I think it's the problem, and this is where the party's kind of split. One party thinks that the government is a solution, and in my from my advantage, I think that we keep on turning the government to solve the problems that they created. Mm-hmm. And that government is almost never the answer to our own problems. We have to allow local principalities to represent their people the best possible way, and then the people themselves have to step up.
Yeah. So you believe in smaller government?
Absolutely.
And states' rights?
Absolutely.
So the states have no rights to say, we don't want the National Guard in here?
Like Illinois right now?
Once again, you do have the right. And if you don't take that right to do the right thing, that's when you ask for these overreach.
You don't think that's big government overreach?
That's been the problem all along. Where does government step up? Well, the government steps up when there's a void, and when local principalities don't step up to the plate, there's a void. And that's why you have bigger government. I hate the fact that we have bigger government. And why do we have the federal government paying 90% of Medicaid on a state-run program? Yeah. Why? Because they didn't step up to the plate, so the federal government has to overspend by 30% of our budget per year to take on what states aren't doing for themselves. This is the problem. When big government gets overreaching, it's going to affect your kids and my kids.
You know where most of those people are from, right?
Which people?
People who are Medicaid and who get services and who live in states that are not donor states. Usually donor states are the blue states, that like California.
It's supposed to be a state issue.
People who live in rural areas.
It's not about
red areas, red
or blue. I know there's tons of red people. That's not the issue. The issue is not about Democrat and Republican. It's about states and federal. It was never intended to be a federal program because federal government doesn't maintain a budget in a responsible way.
I got to get a break in.
Yeah, good.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you having this discussion. Congressman, come back and talk to us. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
All right.
Good
Nice to meet you.
impromptu conversation.
Wow, good impromptu conversation.
Take the military off the street, Congressman. Help us out.
Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.